There is a specific kind of heaviness that most of us carry around every single day, a weight so familiar that we have ceased to recognize it as a burden and have instead accepted it as the necessary texture of existence. It is the weight of caring. Not the caring of love, or the caring of compassion, or the caring of tending to a garden or a child, but the caring of attachment, the caring of anxiety, the caring of control. We care about what the neighbor thinks of our lawn. We care about the tone of an email sent by a colleague. We care about the number of likes on a photograph. We care about the hypothetical future disasters that have not happened, and likely never will. We care about the image we project, the status we hold, the opinions of strangers, and the validation of a world that is largely indifferent to us. We are taught from the moment we can understand language that this caring is a virtue, that to worry is to be responsible, that to stress is to be important, and that to agonize over the outcome of events is the mark of a serious and engaged human being. We are taught that if we stop caring, the wheels will fall off the bus of our lives, that chaos will ensue, and that we will fall into a state of irrelevance and ruin. But there is a secret that sits at the very center of human psychology, a paradox that the Stoics, the Taoists, and the depth psychologists have whispered about for centuries. It is the realization that the equation is actually reversed. The more you grip the steering wheel, the more likely you are to crash. The more you obsess over the target, the more likely you are to miss. The more you desperately need happiness, the more it eludes you. And conversely, the less you care in the specific sense of releasing your stranglehold on outcomes, opinions, and the illusion of control, the happier you inevitably become. This is not a call to nihilism, nor is it an invitation to become a sociopath who feels nothing for the suffering of others. It is a call to a specific kind of spiritual and psychological detachment, a shedding of the unnecessary skins of the ego that have suffocated your authentic self for so long. It is the realization that your misery is almost entirely self-manufactured, built out of the raw materials of your own excessive investment in things that simply do not matter, or things that you simply cannot change. To understand why caring less leads to happiness, we must first understand the mechanics of why caring too much causes suffering. When we say we care about something in a neurotic sense, what we usually mean is that we have tethered our internal state of well-being to an external condition. We say to ourselves, unconsciously, that I will only be okay if this person likes me, or I will only be at peace if I get this promotion, or I will only feel worthy if my body looks a certain way. We take the sovereignty of our own souls and we hand it over to the world, distributing pieces of our peace of mind to 1,000 different external factors, most of which are volatile, unpredictable, and utterly beyond our command. We become the puppet of circumstance. If the traffic is bad, we are ruined. If the comment is snarky, we are devastated. If the plan goes sideways, we are destroyed. We are walking open wounds, terrified of the salt of reality. This hyper-caring is rooted in the ego's desperate need to secure itself. The ego believes that if it can just control enough variables, if it can just manipulate enough opinions, if it can just predict enough futures, it will finally be safe. It believes that worry is a form of magic, that if we ruminate on a problem hard enough, we can solve it through sheer force of mental anguish. But this is a lie. Worry does not empty tomorrow of its sorrow. It empties today of its strength. When you care too much, you are living in a state of chronic contraction. Your body is tight, your breath is shallow, and your mind is a surveillance state, constantly scanning the horizon for threats, constantly adjudicating your own performance, constantly measuring yourself against an invisible and impossible standard. This state of being is incompatible with happiness. Happiness requires flow. It requires openness. It requires a certain looseness of being. You cannot be happy when you are braced for impact. The liberation begins when you realize that nobody is watching you. This is one of the most painful and yet most freeing truths a human being can absorb. We walk around with a spotlight effect, believing that we are the main character in a grand drama and that everyone else is the audience. Critiquing our wardrobe, our career choices, and our social interactions. We overcare because we are performing. We are terrified of the bad review. But the truth is that everyone else is the main character in their own movie, and they are far too consumed with their own lines, their own insecurities, and their own spotlight to pay much attention to yours. When you mess up, when you stumble, when you say the awkward thing, you agonize over it for days. The people who witnessed it likely forgot about it within 10 minutes. When you realize that the audience is empty, that the theater is dark, and that you have been performing for an illusion, you can finally stop acting. You can take off the costume. You can stop caring about the applause. And in that silence, for the first time, you can hear yourself think. You can feel what you actually feel, not what you are supposed to feel. This is the first rush of happiness, the happiness of authenticity. This leads us to the concept of the law of reversed effort, often popularized by the philosopher Alan Watts. The law suggests that when you try to stay on the surface of the water, you sink. But when you try to sink, you float. When you hold your breath, you lose it. When you let it go, you breathe. In life, the things we desire most, love, respect, success, joy, are often repelled by our desperation. When you care too much about being liked, you become needy, anxious, and people-pleasing, which ironically makes people respect you less. You become a chameleon, changing your colors to fit the room, and people can smell the inauthenticity. They pull away. But when you stop caring if they like you, when you become comfortable in your own skin, when you are willing to be disliked in service of being real, a strange thing happens. You become magnetic. You possess a gravity that draws people in. They trust you because you are not trying to extract validation from them. By caring less about the outcome of the interaction, you improve the quality of the interaction. The same applies to success. When you are desperate for the result, when you are white-knuckling the outcome, you operate out of fear. You play it safe. You choke under pressure. You are so terrified of failing that you cannot innovate. You cannot play. You cannot enter the flow state where all great work is done. But when you detach from the result, when you focus on the process rather than the price, you become lighter. You can take risks because you are not defined by the potential failure. You can experiment. You can work with joy rather than dread. And because you are working from a place of joy and freedom, the work is better, and the success you stop strangling finally comes to you. It is the archer who does not care about the prize who hits the bullseye. The archer who is thinking about the gold medal trembles and misses. To care less is to reclaim your energy. Think of your attention as a currency. Every single day, you wake up with a limited amount of this currency. Most of us spend it with reckless abandon. We spend it on the rude driver, the political argument on the internet, the celebrity scandal, the annoyance of the weather, the regret of the past, the fear of the future. By noon, we are bankrupt. We have no energy left for the things that actually matter. Our creativity, our loved ones, our own health, our own peace. When you adopt the philosophy of caring less, you become a miser with your attention. You look at a situation that would normally trigger you an insult, a delay, a mistake, and you ask yourself, can I afford to spend my peace on this? And usually, the answer is no. You withdraw your investment. You shrug. You let it pass through you like wind through a screen door. You save your energy for the things that build you up, rather than the things that tear you down. This conservation of energy results in a surplus of vitality, and that surplus feels like happiness. There is also a profound connection between caring less and the Jungian concept of the shadow. We often care too much about things because we are projecting our own unresolved issues onto the world. We care deeply about someone else's rudeness because we are suppressing our own aggression. We care deeply about someone else's success because we are suppressing our own ambition. We judge others to avoid judging ourselves. We try to fix the world to avoid fixing our own inner landscape. When you stop caring so much about what everyone else is doing, you are forced to turn that gaze inward. You are forced to withdraw your projections. This can be uncomfortable at first. but it is the path to wholeness. When you stop policing the world, you have the bandwidth to heal yourself. You realize that the anger you felt towards the world was actually your own anger, and by integrating it, you find peace. You stop needing the world to be perfect in order for you to be okay. You learn to contain your own experience. Caring less is the ultimate boundary. We talk a lot about setting boundaries with others, saying no to requests and demands. But the most important boundary is the internal one. It is the boundary you set between your soul and the chaos of existence. It is the decision that you will not allow your internal climate to be dictated by the external weather. If it rains, it rains. You do not have to be sad because it is raining. You do not have to be angry because there is traffic. These are neutral events. The suffering comes from your resistance to them, your caring that they are not happening. When you stop caring, that reality is different from your fantasy of how it should be. You align with reality. You accept what is. This acceptance is not defeat. It is the end of the war. You stop fighting the universe. And when you stop fighting the universe, you realize that the universe was never fighting you. You were punching yourself in the face and blaming life. This philosophy extends to the deepest existential dreads we carry. We care about our legacy. We care about being remembered. We care about our significance. We are terrified of our own smallness. But this caring is a heavy burden. It forces us to constantly try to prove our existence, to leave a mark, to scream, "I matter," into the void. When you look at the stars, or the ocean, or the span of geological time, and you realize that you are dust, that you will be forgotten, that your mistakes don't matter and your triumphs don't matter in the grand scheme of things, this should not depress you. It should exhilarate you. It means you are free. If nothing matters, then you don't have to take it all so seriously. You can just live. You can just enjoy the coffee. You can just walk the dog. You can just love the person in front of you. The crushing pressure of significance is lifted, and in its place, you find the simple, buoyant joy of existence. You are not a statue that needs to be built. You are a song that is being sung. You don't have to last. You just have to be heard in the moment. Consider the relationships in your life. How much misery is caused by caring too much about changing people? We love them, but we want them to be different. We want them to be more ambitious, or more tidy, or more affectionate, or more like us. We nag, we criticize, we worry, we strategize. We exhaust ourselves trying to sculpt other human beings into versions of themselves that they do not want to be. This is a form of caring, yes, but it is a toxic, controlling form. When you stop caring about changing them, when you accept them exactly as they are, a miracle occurs. The tension leaves the relationship. You stop being their project manager and start being their partner. They feel the withdrawal of your judgment, and they relax. They open up. And paradoxically, in that space of acceptance, they often change. They grow, not because you force them, but because you gave them the room to do so. And even if they don't, you are happy, because your happiness is no longer contingent on their behavior. You have cut the cord of codependency. You are loving them, not using them to validate your own need for control. There is a physical component to this as well. Caring is stress. It is cortisol. It is inflammation. When you are constantly worried, constantly offended, constantly trying to control outcomes, your body is in a state of chronic emergency. You age faster. You get sick. Your sleep is shattered. When you adopt the stance of the observer, the person who watches life rather than fighting it, your nervous system regulates. Your shoulders drop. Your digestion improves. Your heart beats slower. You literally become healthier. The body knows that caring less is the state of restoration. It is the state of the parasympathetic nervous system. You cannot be happy if your biology is screaming, danger. By caring less, you signal to your biology that you are safe. But how does one actually do this? How do you trick your mind into this state when you have been wired to worry? It starts with the question, so what? This is the samurai sword of the mind. You have a fearful thought. What if I lose my job? You answer, so what? Then I will get another one. Or I will struggle for a while. I will survive. I am resilient. You have a thought. What if they don't like me? You answer, so what? There are billions of people. I don't like everyone either. It is not fatal. You have a thought. I embarrassed myself. You answer, so what? I am human. It is funny. It is over. You keep asking, so what? Until you hit the bedrock of your own survival. You realize that most of the things you care about are not life and death threats. They are ego threats. And the ego can afford to be bruised. In fact, the bruising of the ego is good for it. It makes it smaller, and a smaller ego leaves more room for a bigger soul. You must also learn to distinguish between your business, other people's business, and God's business. This is a distinction made famous by Byron Katie. Much of our caring is us trespassing into business that is not ours. If you are worried about who your neighbor voted for, you are in their business. If you are worried about the weather, or the economy, or the fact that it is raining on your wedding day, you are in God's business, or the universe's business. You have no control there. You are shouting at the wind. The only place you have any power, the only place where your caring is actually effective, is in your own business, your own thoughts, your own actions, your own character. When you pull all your energy back from the other two circles and focus it entirely on your own, you become incredibly powerful. And you become happy, because you are no longer fighting a war on three fronts. You are tending your own garden. You are letting the neighbors tend theirs. And you are letting the universe handle the weather. This detachment allows you to become the happy warrior. The happy warrior is the person who fights for what they believe in, who works hard, who loves deeply, but who does not attach their identity to the result. They show up 100%, but they are ready to walk away with a smile if it doesn't work out. They play the game of life with full intensity, but they know it is a game. They do not confuse the game with who they are. This creates a kind of Teflon coating around the soul. The slings and arrows of fortune slide off. You can fail and laugh. You can be rejected and shrug. You can lose and still feel like a winner because you played well. This is the ultimate invincibility. Think about the times in your life when you were truly, purely happy. Were you worrying? Were you obsessing over the future? Were you trying to control how you were being perceived? No. You were likely entirely absorbed in the moment. You were watching a sunset, or laughing with a friend, or lost in a creative task. You had forgotten yourself. You had forgotten to care about the narrative of your life. You were just living it. Happiness is the absence of the self-conscious narrator. It is the silence of the inner critic. The more you care about your identity, the louder that critic becomes. The less you care about being someone, the more you can just be. There is a distinct freedom in being a nobody. When you stop caring about being special, you are free to be ordinary. And in that ordinariness, you find the extraordinary beauty of life. You can enjoy a cheap meal as much as an expensive one. You can enjoy a walk around the block as much as a trip to Paris. You stop needing the highs to validate your existence, and you start finding joy in the plateau. You realize that the boring parts of life are actually the best parts, if you stop resisting them. Folding laundry can be a meditation. Washing dishes can be a sensory pleasure. But only if you stop caring about being somewhere else, doing something more important. The paradox continues. The less you care, the more you actually see. When your mind is uncluttered by anxiety and projection, you perceive the world as it is. You see people as they are, not as you need them to be. You see opportunities that you would have missed because you were too busy looking for threats. Your intuition sharpens. You become wiser. You stop reacting to the surface of things and start responding to the depth of things. You become a better judge of character. You navigate the world with a kind of effortless grace, because you are not crashing into the furniture of reality in your panic. Ultimately, caring less is an act of faith. It is a declaration that you trust yourself to handle whatever happens. The person who worries is saying, I do not trust my future self to cope with difficulty, so I must pre-solve everything now. The person who cares less says, I trust my future self. I am resilient. If the worst happens, I will deal with it then. I do not need to bleed before I am cut. This self-trust is the foundation of all true happiness. It is the knowledge that you are undeniable, that your worth is intrinsic, and that nothing the world gives you or takes away from you can touch the core of who you are. It is a shedding. You shed the need to be right. You shed the need to be admired. You shed the need to be understood. You shed the need to be in control. And with each layer you shed, you become lighter. You rise. You look down at the drama of your life and you smile, because you see it for what it is. A play, a dance, a passing cloud. You are the sky. The clouds come and go. The storms rage and pass. But the sky is untouched. The sky does not care about the weather. The sky just is. And when you reach that state, when you become the sky, you have found the happiness that cannot be taken away because it does not depend on anything outside of you. It is the happiness of freedom. It is the happiness of the open hand, letting the bird fly, knowing that if it comes back, it is yours. And if it doesn't, you are still whole. You are still here. You are still you. And that is enough.